Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Petersburg at the Menard County Courthouse. This is the second courthouse to be built on this site. The first one was taken down in 1844, then this one was built in 1896, and during this program we'll go inside and take a look at it, hear the history of it, go up on the roof, which commands a wonderful view of the countryside and downtown Petersburg, and we'll learn about the history of this great area. First, though, I want to introduce you to Ray Montgomery, who has been very active in doing research on Menard County for years, because Ray, not only are you a historian, but you're a writer and you've published some books, and you're working on another book at the age of 85, did you tell me?
88.
88, okay. At the age of 88, you're working on another book. That's fantastic. But one thing that I learned from you that was striking about the truth of this building is when they set their mind to building this in 1896, they didn't waste any time, did they?
No, they didn't. In fact, the chronology, as I call it, of the construction had the dome on this courthouse in place in September, and they had a flag on it in October.
Now, when did they start?
In June. They started on June the 30th. Well, the dedication of the building was on June the 30th of 1896. Uh-huh. And these are all occurring just months after the dedication. And the third item in the chronology was a furnace was in this building in November. And by the end of December, all of the plastering was done. Now, Mark, keep in mind, we are talking about brick from the granite level. Yeah. It's 2 courses of brick on all the walls, including the interior walls. That's the reason I asked Jackie about that. The interior walls are also 2 courses of brick. Uh-huh. And but the ornamentation on top of it, the architecture involved in it is also what makes it mind-boggling that they could do all of this in such a short order. Yeah. Because the people who are running the show moved in on March the 29th of 97.
Mm-hmm. So in 9 months, virtually 9 months, they went from laying the stone to having the interior done enough to move in and start working. Yes. That's incredible. Now, you'll notice that there is a difference. When you look at the first floor, I think you called that granite, sculptured granite. Yes. What happened? Why did they change building material? Well, they found out the cost was going to be prohibitive for the granite, and so they went to another material, which is red sandstone, actually. Uh-huh. And it's laid over the brick. So it's not as thick as the granite. The granite is, I'm not sure, but I'm going to guess 18 inches thick. Wow. On the bottom layer. It's a secure building, isn't it? Oh, it is. Yeah. And then 2 layers of brick and then sandstone on top of that. Okay. So it's not going anywhere for a while, we don't think. How much did it cost to build, do you know? Well, they had a bond issue for $50,000. The actual cost, I don't think I've ever seen the actual figure on the cost of it, Mark, but it was. But their plans were to spend about $50,000. Yeah, and that was a lot of money. Pretty substantial in those days. Yeah. I mentioned it was built in 1896 in the same spot as the original courthouse, and I've got a picture of that original courthouse here. This is the one that was built in 1844. Now, and they tore it down. It didn't burn down. No, do you know why they tore it down? Well, I have a feeling the contractor who bid for it had some use for the materials in it, and because there was another building with it, the vault in which they kept the county clerks and circuit clerks records. It sat on the northeast corner of that building. So he would have been tearing both of them down at that time. And just what he used to, his name was Winfield Bale. And interestingly, he would have been a relative of the Bales family that owned what is now New Salem. And became the village of New Salem. Uh-huh. And they're the ones that sold it to William Randolph Hearst, which is part of my other book has been published. I'm a co-author of it. It's
about Chautauqua.
I see.
And I told you I wouldn't say that, but I thought that did tie in.
No book plug in here, right?
Sorry about that. You can cut that part.
Okay, so 1844, the other one goes, but the interesting thing about that building was, and it's a shame it's not still here, because Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln, they heard cases against each other in that building, didn't
Yes,
they?
that's correct.
What a treasure.
And many of the attorneys that were practicing in Springfield practiced in that building too, and I can't give you names, but they were here. Well, of course, Lincoln's partners would have been with him at times when he was coming in.
Yeah.
But it was
what a treasure to have for a museum if we could only have kept it. Huh?
Yes, it was a lot of history.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you for this. And I understand that actually the architect and the builder of this building were from Illinois, were they not?
Yes, yes, they were.
Well, Jackie Horn, you probably know as much about this courthouse as anybody. Right?
Probably.
Ray Montgomery, we met Ray. Mm-hmm. Ray's a good source.
Yes.
You're a good source. We're walking up to the second floor, but actually this is kind of like the main floor, isn't it?
Correct.
Because this is where most of the entrances to the offices come off of.
Yes.
The building is built in kind of a strange way, isn't it? Because you enter, and it's on a slab.
Mm-hmm. And the first floor is what they refer to as an American basement, and it's covered on the exterior by granite. The rest of the other two stories are brick and tile, and covered with sandstone.
And so when they designed this, I think they probably designed it so you would go immediately upstairs to conduct your business, because downstairs is just rather mundane looking and it's just offices. Right?
That's correct.
Now, my photographer says, why are you carrying that brick around? Well, I wanted to show this because you all found this after this building was built, after this building was built, and you believe that this is one of the bricks from the 1844 courthouse that was torn down. Look at that. It almost looks like clay, not brick, doesn't it? And you have pretty good evidence that this is from the 1844 building. Isn't that something? Thousands of these disappeared. That whole building went to be recycled, didn't it?
It was sold at auction.
Now you mentioned the tile, and I want to pay attention to this floor just a little bit, because there was a time when this tile started to give up and y'all had to rework it again. What'd you do?
The gentleman came in and removed sections of it at a time, laid down the new cement board and remortared them.
And all of the tiles are original.
Yes.
These are all from the 1896 building, and what a beautiful design in the middle.
Isn't that gorgeous?
It really is. It really is. And that's a ceramic tile. And then you also have one of your judges in the past put this up for a display area.
Yes.
And these are very old court cases that were heard in this building.
Yes, these are copies of the original documents. They referred to some people that were back in Lincoln's time, maybe even some people that came from the New Salem area. Abraham Lincoln involved in some cases, and Mr. Douglas.
Here's a last will and testament of a Joshua Short. It's a good example of what documents look like, even if you don't care about that particular case. It's a nice example to see what was going on here. Now, interestingly, I'll tell you what, let's go over here because these windows tell a story as well. Arched windows are unusual, I hear, in courthouses, and what you've got here is you've got one on each end. That end is broken off by an office. You can't see that one, but there is another circular window over there.
And they're the white oak, and just let in beautiful light.
Yeah, and the white oak is the same. We see this white oak here, and this is all original on the banister and the stairways. It's all original white oak, and it's beautiful work. You'll see this throughout the building as we go. In the judges' chambers and elsewhere, you'll see this white oak, and I'm sure it was probably grown on the grounds here, not very far away anyway. Okay, Jackie, I also want to draw attention to this over here, because you don't see these little alcoves, these little shrine-like areas in very many places. And you've used these on this floor for a specific reason. What's this award for?
Well, this award Menard County Board received in 2004 for the Richard Dryhouse Foundation Preservation Award when they restored the exterior of the sandstone. The cost was $605,000. Fortunately, the general fund was able to pay for it from their savings. And
you know, we saw that sandstone outside when we were taking a look at the outside of the courthouse. $600,000 to restore the sandstone.
Yes.
Wow, no wonder you got an award. That's quite a commitment.
Yes.
Now, we mentioned what happens up here. This, the circuit clerk takes up a large part of this floor.
Yes.
And we'll notice when we walk into this room that we're actually walking into a vault because the front door to this is as secure as it can get.
Yes.
Let's take a look in there.
Yeah, actually it's a double.
It is. It's like a safe door.
Double door.
Okay, so nobody's going to mess around with the stuff that goes on in here. And this is all functionally a vault, isn't it?
Yes.
This whole office. All storage of documents, important court records.
Dating back to 1839.
No kidding. Is that when the county was founded, 1839?
Yes.
Now, anywhere you see this hardwood flooring, it's all the original restored hardwood flooring, and it's beautiful. Again, the white oak. There was a ton of white oak in this part of the country, I guess. Something unusual about this courthouse, and I had to see this. From here up to the judge's chambers, or up to the circuit court, there's this iron spiral staircase. And so we're going to take that upstairs. And it gives the circuit clerk access to the judge and vice versa. But interestingly, and we're going to talk about this as we go up there, it sort of serves as a communications depot too, doesn't it?
Yes.
How does it work?
Well, they have a bag there, and when the cases are done, the judge can, or the girls, the circuit clerk people, they put the work in the bag. It comes
to the
down,
left there.
comes down to the first, or to this floor. The clerks here are able to grab it, and when the defendant comes in to pay their fine,
the paperwork's all done.
Yeah, the paperwork's
they pay
all
and
there.
they go, huh? Okay. So it's just lower that bag and keep the traffic moving.
Yes.
Can we go upstairs?
Sure.
I'll follow you.
Okay.
Tight quarters too.
Yes.
If you're broad-shouldered, you have a little trouble.
Or if you have a lot of folders.
Yeah, if you're carrying a lot of stuff, as circuit clerks do. So, okay, this is our destination. The courtroom's in there. The judge's chambers are there. But one last time, to look at this woodwork, Jackie, is pretty stunning, isn't it?
It's great.
Look at the size of that door.
Big doors.
White oak. Well, Judge Brannon, we're in the 8th Circuit.
That is correct.
Illinois Circuit. You're proud to serve in this circuit, which goes all the way from Quincy east to, I guess this is as far east as it goes,
This is the western, that's correct.
The eastern.
The eastern,
right,
that's
terminus
correct.
of the district. Okay. And the old 8th Circuit, boy, that's a historic circuit, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Abraham Lincoln, of course, he's the vestige, if you will, of the 8th Circuit. He used to practice in this area, including Petersburg, Beardstown, Virginia.
You know, you and I were talking a little bit earlier, and we talked about you've had experience in newer courtrooms, and you've had experience in traditional courtrooms like this one. You prefer the older ones, don't you?
Well, I think you're picking on my age, but the answer is yes, in a sense I do. I mean, you know, our Constitution is over 200 years old, and the fact of the matter is the old courtrooms are a vestige of the law as it's been for many years, and even though there are nuances and changes to it, this is still, in my opinion, the original court, if you will. It may be antiquated in some sense, but on the other hand, this is where people have come for years and years and years to seek justice and to settle their disputes. And I guess I'm old-fashioned, but I sort of adhere to the old courtroom, the wood, the amenities that in new courtrooms they just don't have that.
Yeah. Fewer changes, the better. And we're looking at it around now. We just saw your bench, and that's one of the original accents from the courtroom. We're looking at the pews now. Those are original, are they not?
That is correct.
And boy, they can cram a lot of people into a hearing here, can't they?
And occasionally it's pretty full.
And that's interesting because you don't usually see pews with, everybody has their own original armrest.
That is correct.
Delineated seats for that. The ceiling too. Now there was a drop ceiling in here.
They remodeled about 15 years ago, I believe. And when they did, they took out the drop ceiling. And what you see here, the dome in the middle, that was apparently covered up by the drop ceiling. But then they've re-exposed it all, and as you know, you've been up in the attic today. It's quite a piece of art up there.
Now, and also, as we look at these arched windows, you can see that they sacrificed the lower part of that arch because when the drop ceiling, and that's going to have to be repaired when money becomes available, I guess.
I don't know whether there are plans to actually repair that.
Yeah, that would be nice, though, wouldn't it, to finish up those arches? But I'm with you. I like it the way the traditional look and these high ceilings. There's nothing much like that, is there?
Well, it's still very functional. I mean, you know, there are some things that we can't do that maybe they can in
the newer courthouses, but on the other hand, we've got the jury box over here, and I think that that's probably the original railing for it. The bench, I don't know how many years the bench goes back, but it goes back many, many years. Yeah. And it's just sort of a part of history, if you will.
Well, Ray, Menard County takes its service people very seriously, because on this corner of the square, there's this tribute to all the men and women who served in all the wars. But inside, there's additional plaques for individual wars, individual conflicts. But this is just gorgeous. This was built in 2002, and of course you know the people who put this together.
Yes, that's true. And we actually have all of the war people to date. Well, not all of them, because we don't have the War of 1812, but we do not have the Civil War identified, and I think this is a sad thing, because when I have a feeling when my generation is gone, there will be the interest, if there is interest, will diminish pretty fast. But
it's interesting. I mentioned inside there are plaques commemorating those who served in the Revolutionary War and the First World War and the Second World War, the Korean War, yes. But not the Civil War. So you got your work cut out for you. You're going to have to start identifying those people.
Well, I have to mention my brother David, who was at Pearl Harbor. He worked with me. In fact, he was the chair of the World War II group that got the names all together and put up the plaque in the first floor of the courthouse. Yeah. But he was at Pearl Harbor when the Japs hit and sent the first message and all that stuff. But he was a real true veteran.
Yeah. This is really special. This says grateful tribute to all men and women of Menard County who served in the armed forces in the past, present, and future wars or conflicts. And that pretty much says it all, doesn't it?
It sure does. And it says it all of two. Perry is the one of the people are responsible. It's gone now. The other one is about my age. So it says, it speaks well of them also.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie, every building needs an attic, right?
Yes.
Especially a courthouse, because there's so darn much stuff to store, isn't
Lots
there?
of records.
And they keep making them, don't they?
Yes.
It's not like you get a certain amount of records and you're done. You just keep churning them out.
Mm-hmm.
So you need an attic to store them in, and even then sometimes you have to go outside to find storage, don't you?
Yes, we lease a space across the street for heavy books.
Uh-huh. Wow. What a view, huh?
Isn't that phenomenal?
Okay, we're looking at the west part of the square here?
Yes.
Is that what we see here?
Mm-hmm. We have the Branson House Bed and Breakfast, the green
on the top of the hill.
Building on top of the hill.
Uh-huh.
This is a Christian church. This is the Menard County Historic Society down here in the corner.
With the pointy top, with
yes.
the cylinder and the pointy top.
Yes, that
okay,
used to be the old Frackleton Bank building.
That's a beautiful building.
Yes.
As we work our way around counterclockwise, what's the big building with the gray roof there?
That's the old Petersburg Harris High School, and then later
what's
Porta.
It used for now?
It has apartments.
Uh-huh.
And straight ahead
church
is
on top of the hill?
St. Peter's Catholic Church.
Uh-huh. And as we work our way along here, you can see Potter's built a new drugstore down there near the square.
And that highway takes you out of town to Springfield.
Mm-hmm. New Salem and Springfield, right? And then moving this way, we look, that's river bottom over there, isn't it, where all the trees are?
Yes.
Nothing's been built up there because that's river bottom. Railroad goes along there. What's that highway going up between the hills?
That's 123.
Okay, and that goes to
the junction that'll take you to Greenview or Athens.
Oh, okay, all right. And then more river bottom. This is a really nice view of downtown. And then over there, farmland up on overlooking the river valley. This gives you a good look at the square and some of the facades that have been put on. They're really attractive, really nice. And then the little church steeple there, what's that?
That's the Baptist Church.
Baptist Church, okay. There's a big house on the hill. You can barely see it between the trees.
That's Mr. Lanning's home. I think it's owned by some people from California now. It's a show place. It's a wonderful 3-story home.
And to the left of that, if you look, you can barely see the top of a windmill.
That's the new tower out at Porta High School.
And that's
the energy.
That's providing wind energy for them, huh?
Yes.
And one last church that we can see there on the corner, with the white.
That's the Petersburg United Church of Christ.
What a neat view.
And the Cumberland or Central Presbyterian Church straight, just to its left.
I'll bet a lot of people that live in Petersburg have never seen it from here.
No. We can see the tower. You can see that when you come in town. It's spectacular in the fall and in the spring. And when you come in from the south, you can see it. When you leave the Catholic Church, you can see it. So.
Yeah, this is really spectacular. Thanks for bringing us up here.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, Menard's probably the only courthouse anywhere that has a historical marker to a horse.
Well, I think that's true, and particularly Peter McHugh.
Peter McHugh. Who was Peter McHugh?
Peter McHugh was he's been referred to as the grandsire of all quarter horses.
Wow.
He was foaled on a farm 4 miles west of Petersburg by the Watkins family, who, when he was, I think, about 6 years old, sold him to an Oklahoma, Texas, and Colorado syndicate that purchased him, and they put him out for what they called stud in those days. Yeah. And his bloodlines it's remarkable how his bloodlines, since he died in 1923, have held up through the decades. And the American Quarter Horse Association told me about 10 years ago, that my last contact with him, that his bloodlines are, at that point, were still showing up in about 70% of the registered quarter horses in the world. And they had, at that point, I think they said like 4.5 million registered quarter horses.
That is
so
incredible.
This gives you it's just an unbelievable story. The other story that I think epitomizes this horse's greatness was the King Ranch in Texas. Bred nothing but quarter horses. They may still do it, I'm not sure, but they were doing it 10 years ago. And at that point, they would not allow a mare on their ranch that did not have Peter McHugh bloodlines.
Wow.
And so he's just a great, absolute. I've had some friends who are in the Western journalists have been here. I've taken them. I've had Western actors. I've taken them, and they can't understand why Petersburg doesn't get on and do something with Peter McHugh.
They know who Peter McHugh is.
Sure they do.
Peter McHugh raced before he became famous again. Of course, raced at the Menard County Fairgrounds, and since then has been inducted into the American Quarter Horse Hall of Fame.
That's correct. That's correct.
Well, Ray, a lot of people don't know that Abraham Lincoln was a surveyor at one time, and even fewer people know that as a surveyor, he laid out the town of Petersburg, didn't he?
That's true.
This is on one of the corners of the square.
That's correct. Lincoln Survey was actually what we would refer to as a resurvey, but it was, I'm sure the people who purchased what became the city of Petersburg were very interested in having a correct survey, so they had Lincoln do it.
Yeah, if anybody's going to do it right, he'd do it right.
That's right.
You know, but it's interesting because he stood on this very ground, and day after day, I imagine it took him several days, just laid out the town that you all live in.
That's right.
It's kind of neat.
That's right. And he had a place down, it was called the Bennett Inn, which was south of here. It was a place that Peter Lukens, who had started the town, had built. And Dr. Richard Bennett owned it, and he allowed Lincoln to live there while he was doing his survey. And he lived in what became the Bennett Inn later. I'm not sure what it was called up until Dr. Bennett purchased the building, but I suppose Lukens' home or whatever. But much of his surveying was done not only from here, but from private homes. He would stay, there's a place on Sandridge where he spent a lot of time living with a gentleman whose great-grandson was county clerk, or Jim Combs was the county clerk in Menard at one time. And but Lincoln stayed with him on a regular basis. when he was surveying, particularly if he was out in the north part of this area.
And little did Lincoln know, or maybe he did, but couldn't have known for sure, that this area that he was surveying, when he stood here and surveys this town square, that there was going to be a courthouse built here in which he would be practicing law when he became a lawyer.
That's true. That's true.
A dream come true.
Because he was not yet a lawyer when all the surveying was going on. That's true.
When the Menard County Courthouse was built in 1896, it had no electricity. Within months, it was electrified. These old buildings take constant care. Next up for the courthouse, fix a leaky roof and new heating and air conditioning systems. With another Illinois story in Menard County, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send 1995 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.